Welcome to Longevity Codes with your host, Fred Herbert. This podcast is about living a longer, healthier, and more active life. Each week, Fred shares strategies from experts about not only living longer, but helping us discover our personal longevity codes to live life to the fullest. This podcast is sponsored by RedoxLongevity.com, where we'll discover what experts are calling the most amazing breakthrough in our lifetime that affects health, anti-aging, and sports performance. Learn more at RedoxLongevity.com. That's www.RedoxLongevity.com. And now, here's our host, Fred Herbert.
Welcome, my fellow longevity code breakers. In this podcast, we're going to discuss what we can learn from the research of Dan Buettner and others who have studied people living past 100 years old. Obviously, this can help each of us as we seek to crack the longevity codes. Dan teamed up with National Geographic along with longevity researchers to identify areas of the world where people live longer, but not just longer, better. They found areas where people reach 100 at rates 10 times greater than we do here in the United States. Dan first wrote a magazine article for National Geographic in 2005 titled The Secrets of a Long Life, where he talked about 5 regions of the world he called blue zones, which is a term he trademarked. The regions are Okinawa, Japan, Sardinia, Italy, Nicoya, Costa Rica, Icaria, Greece, and among the Seventh-day Adventists living in Loma Linda, California. From that research came Buettner's New York Times bestseller in 2008, The Blue Zones, Lessons for Living Longer from the People Who Lived the Longest. This is a fantastic book and a must-read for anyone wanting to live a longer and healthier life. I had the opportunity to hear him speak in person several years ago when he came to Fort Worth, Texas to help kick off the city's Blue Zone project. He inspired my wife and I to incorporate his longevity strategies into our lives. In their research, they came up with 9 things these longer living communities had in common. In this podcast, we'll cover all 9, but be sure these will be covered in much more detail in future podcasts. Here's the list from the Blue Zone Project. They call it the Power 9, and it's based on Dan's book and research. The first one is move naturally. Second, purpose. Third, downshift. Number 4, the 80% rule. Number 5, a plant slant. 6 is wine at 5. 7, belong. 8, loved ones first. And 9 is right tribe. Strategy number 1, move naturally. Those who live the longest don't lift weights, join expensive gyms, or run long distances. They move naturally. The people who live in Icaria, Greece, which are on the Blue Zones list as living the longest, of them, the ones that are the poorest live the longest. The reason might be because they live higher in the mountains, and just walking to their neighbors could be an uphill climb. These people also spend more time in gardening. This is a great reminder to all of us to find natural ways to move throughout our day. Sarah Cliff with the Washington Post analyzed the data from the Institute of Health Metrics and Evaluation and found that New Yorkers can expect to live almost 3 years longer than the rest of America. If you've ever been in New York, you know they walk everywhere and fast. That has to be a contributing factor. It can't be because they're less stressed than the rest of us. Walking is one of the easiest ways to get natural movement. It's important to maintain our flexibility as we age, and being active has helped these people stay healthy to 100 and beyond. Number 2 is to have a purpose. We must all know our why. Without a clear why, we won't make the choices necessary to live a long and healthy life. For me, I have more things I would like to do, things to learn, places to go and see, than I could accomplish in 3 lifetimes. To enjoy my 70s, 80s, 90s, and even my 100s, I need both physical health and mental clarity. According to Blue Zone, having a purpose alone can add 7 years to our lives. Stephanie Hooker, Ph.D. and MPH of the University of Minnesota, reported in Psychology Today that she found those who know their why recover faster and have improved surgery outcomes for people with knee replacement. I find it also interesting that knowing our purpose also helps reduce stress and has shown to lower our blood pressure. We have all probably known an elderly person who's giving up, and we intuitively know they're not going to last much longer. I'll never forget 25 years ago listening to a Brian Tracy audio on setting goals. He said something like, "You must know your major definite purpose, and if you don't know it, make it your current major definite purpose to figure that out." Know your purpose. We must know our purpose for living, what God put us here to accomplish. Know your why. What a sad way to end our last couple of decades because we have lost our sense of purpose. Not me. When I die, I'll have a long list of unfinished plans and dreams that I'm working on. Number 3 is what they call downshift. According to Dan, the longest living people have this in common. They know how to downshift. By that we mean the longest lived people find ways to reduce stress. Chronic stress leaves us with all sorts of health issues. According to the Mayo Clinic, stress causes weight gain, depression, heart disease, anxiety, digestive problems, headaches, sleep problems, memory and concentration issues, and the list could probably go on. Dan discovered that people who live in the Blue Zone communities reduce their stress with activities like napping in Greece, praying like the Seventh-day Adventists. The Okinawans spend time each day remembering their ancestors, and those in Sardinia enjoy happy hour with friends and family. How do you reduce stress? Stop for just a minute and think about what works best for you. If you find it difficult to de-stress, learn to downshift. There are many resources out there on learning to de-stress. Find what works best for you. One of the best ways for me to reduce stress is get out in nature. Breathing the clean air and seeing the beauty of God's creation will do it for me every time. Number 4 on the list is what they call 80% rule. The idea here is to stop eating when we feel 80% full. It's simple. Just stop eating because those who live the longest use this tool and obviously it works for them. So we should do it. According to Susan Doport, who is a registered dietitian, says it can take up to 15 or 20 meals to teach our stomachs to realize it's full. She suggests we should stop eating when we're not hungry any longer and wait 10 minutes to see if we're full. Not only does this coincide with the longest living people on the planet, but it also helps tremendously with weight loss. Studies have shown that when we use smaller plates, we eat less. It tricks our minds to think that we've had enough to eat. We'll get into this more in future podcasts, but scientists have recognized for decades the link between eating less and longevity. Coming in at number 5 is plant slant. By that they mean eating mostly a plant-based diet. Those who lived to be 100 plus in the blue zones were found to eat meat on an average of only 5 times a month. Most of the folks who were studied ate an abundance of beans, lentils, fish, and of course lots of fruits and vegetables. I enjoy a good steak like so many of you, but this is really interesting. WebMD reports that meat is high in saturated fat and raises our LDL cholesterol, the bad kind. And some researchers suggest that the more red meat we eat, the greater our risk of developing colorectal cancer. The study went on to say that the more sugar and processed foods we consume, we also have a greater risk of heart disease and developing all types of cancers. We need to stay away from processed foods as much as possible. Cook at home for more quality control of our food, and eat more veggies. I'll continue to eat meat, but because of our Blue Zone friends who are living the longest, I'm planning on cutting back on red meat consumption. Not only do they eat very little red meat, remember just 5 times a month, they only eat about 3 to 4 ounces at a time. That's about the size of a deck of cards. And number 6 was wine at 5. During this extensive research, they found that those who drink regularly, but at a moderate level, outlive those people who don't drink. The exception was those in Loma Linda, California, who are mostly Seventh-day Adventists and don't drink for religious convictions. One of the keys is to drink with friends because social support is so good for us. The Blue Zone's recommended to drink 1 to 2 glasses daily, but no more. Of course, if you don't drink, you shouldn't start drinking based on these findings. The heart benefits of drinking wine is still being studied, but the antioxidants has been shown to help prevent coronary artery disease, which leads to heart attacks. Resveratrol, which helps to prevent damage to blood vessels, is what makes red wine so healthy. If you don't drink, you can get it from red grapes, or what I recommend is a high-quality resveratrol supplement, but make sure it's from a reputable source. Many companies have jumped on the bandwagon and claim their supplements are high quality, but do your own research. A recent article by the Mayo Clinic staff titled Alcohol, Weighing Risks and Potential Benefits said the following, quote, "Moderate alcohol consumption may provide some health benefits such as reducing your risk of developing or dying from heart disease, possibly reducing the risk of ischemic stroke. This is when your arteries of your brain become narrowed or blocked, causing severely reduced blood flow, and then possibly reducing your risk of diabetes." My recommendations is don't start drinking because of this podcast, especially if you have a family history of alcoholism, are pregnant, or on certain medications. The key word here is moderation. If you have problems controlling consumption, then stay away. The 7th strategy with living longer, according to the Blue Zones, is to belong. This is where participating in a faith-based setting helps us live longer. Out of the 263 centurions, only 5 did not belong to a community of faith-based people. It doesn't matter the type of denomination you attend, but just make sure you attend if you want to live longer than average. When we attend 4 times a month, according to Dan Buettner's study, we can add an additional 4 to as many as 15 extra years to our life. Wow! The National Institute of Health found that one of the benefits for those who actively attend faith-based gatherings have lower levels of depression, smoke less than those who don't attend, and have a greater number of friends who believe the way they do compared to the non-attenders. Those who attend practice meditation and prayer more frequently, which is believed to help reduce stress and lowers our issues with anger. Coming in at number 8 is loved ones first. Another commonality between those in the research had their aging parents closer to them. Their children and grandchildren also lived closer. They also had life partners, which adds about 3 years to our longevity. A Harvard Health study found that men who were married or in a life commitment were healthier than men who never married or were divorced or widowed. Another benefit found that people in these types of relationships were less lonely and had stronger social support. A Japanese study found men who never married were 3 times more likely to die from heart disease than men who were married. This is not about making you feel bad if you aren't married or in a serious relationship. Having friends and strong social support can help to bridge that gap. Finding encouraging people to help us through life's journey is critical to good health and longevity. And coming in at number 9 of the Blue Zone's Power 9 is having the right tribe. Having a strong, healthy support system is critical for good health. One of the Framingham Heart studies found that people with good social support helps reduce depression, have a lower risk of smoking, and believe it or not, when you have a group of good friends, we are less likely to be obese. Aristotle said, quote, "In poverty and other misfortunes of life, true friends are a sure refuge. They keep the young out of mischief, they comfort and aid the old in their weakness, and they incite those in the prime of life to noble deeds." End quote. Our friends will be there when we celebrate the good times in our lives and will also be there with a shoulder to cry on in the bad times. Psychology Today reports that when we age, the better friendships we have, the longer we'll live. But one more issue is without friends, we have a greater risk of developing diabetes, heart disease, and depression in our golden years. Do you have a friend in your life who will call you and text you at 5:30 in the morning to remind you to get up and go work out? What about a friend who cheers you on when you lose weight or start to eat healthier? Friendship is important, but we need friends who are like-minded and ready to walk through all phases of life with us. Call a friend today and tell them how much they mean to you. It'll make their day, and it's good for your health too. There you have it, the Blue Zone Power 9. Get a copy of Dan's books or go to bluezones.com and learn more. In Dan Buettner's most recent book, Thrive, Finding Happiness the Blue Zones Way, he said, quote, "Drink without getting drunk, love without suffering jealousy, eat without overindulging, never argue, and once in a while, with great discretion, misbehave." End quote. The 9 areas we've talked about might seem a bit of a challenge, but take a look at each of these and determine where your biggest gap is and start working on it today. Over time, we can incorporate all of these into our daily life. You and I are on a quest to discover the longevity codes that'll help us live longer, healthier, and more vibrant lives. What a gift the Blue Zone research has given us. John Maxwell said, quote, "Generally speaking, there are 2 kinds of learning: experience, which is gained from your own mistakes, and wisdom, which is learned from the mistakes of others." You and I are going to be wise enough to learn from the people that are living to 100 and beyond, aren't we? And remember, longevity is not just about quantity, it's also quality. Until next time, go out and discover and then apply your longevity codes.
Thanks for listening to Longevity Codes. For more information, go to longevitycodes.com. To learn more about our sponsor, check out redoxlongevity.com. Tune in to next week's podcast, where you'll learn more strategies on living a longer, healthier, and more active life.